Tonight, let me tell you the story of a swan drifting over a lake at twilight. A story that whispers of Zeus not in thunder, but in quiet song. Most tales remember him as a figure of lightning, a voice that shook mountains, a ruler who raised storms to bend the will of gods and mortals alike. Yet not every night needs thunder. Some nights hold only the soft ripple of water, the hush of reeds swaying at the edge of a silver lake, and the call of a swan gliding in silence. In one rare telling, Zeus chose to appear not as a storm or a conqueror, but as a swan, white feathers glowing in fading light, a creature who carried peace in its wings. To those who listened, the swan sang, not with words, but with a lullaby that seemed to come from the lake itself. Imagine the dusk of such a night. Villagers gather by the water's edge, their day's work set aside. An artisan sits on the grass, his tools wrapped in quiet, his hands resting after shaping wood all day. A healer arrives slowly, carrying herbs that smell of earth and mint. A traveler returns from the road, dust still clinging to his cloak, longing for rest. Even an elder storyteller joins them, leaning on a staff polished smooth by years. Together, they watch the water. At first, they expect little, perhaps only the usual sight of fish breaking the surface or the wind tugging at reeds. But then the swan glides. Across the lake, its movement steady, its wings barely stirring the air. The artisan notices how each ripple seems like a carved line of silver. The healer whispers that such stillness must mean blessing. The traveler, weary of loud markets and rough inns, feels the weight of his journey ease. The elder recalls verses once spoken in hushed tones. When Zeus is weary of the throne, he hides in feathers, and the world sighs. In some versions, the swan carries a secret. Its song, almost too soft to hear, is said to be the sound of water meeting sky. No one can tell if the music is from the bird's throat or from the lake itself, but all who hear it fall into calm. Tonight, the villagers close their eyes and listen. The artisan feels as if his carved bowls will be smoother tomorrow. The healer thinks of patients who might sleep without pain if only this sound could be bottled. The traveler imagines the road ahead, not as burden, but as gentle path. And the elder, smiling faintly, says, "It is the song of rest." Why would Zeus choose such a form? Most myths speak of him as a figure who takes shape to chase or claim, to conquer or command. Yet here the disguise is not for power, but for quiet. Some scholars of old believed this image of Zeus as swan belonged to a strand of storytelling that softened the god, reminding people that even rulers must rest. It may have been told at lakeside villages where storms were feared, and the idea of a god choosing calm feathers over wild lightning was both comfort and prayer. Perhaps the people wished to believe that strength could wear gentleness, that authority could know stillness, that the hand which guides storms could also soothe the night. The artisan, leaning close to the healer, wonders aloud, could it be that the gods rest as we do? The healer answers, if not, how would they know our need for sleep? The traveler adds softly, a journey without pause is no journey at all. Their words float into the quiet, carried by the ripples. The elder taps his staff once and concludes, so, the god wears feathers, and in wearing them, he teaches us that true power does not always roar. Sometimes it drifts, sometimes it sings. The swan moves closer to shore, dipping its beak into the water, tracing circles that glimmer like coins. For a moment, it lifts its wings, not in threat, but as if to cradle the night air. The villagers breathe more slowly. Their shoulders loosen. Even the children, who moments before chased each other in playful shouts, fall quiet, eyes wide at the bird's glowing form. The artisan pulls from his pouch a small reed flute, plays a single soft note, and then lowers it again, embarrassed. Yet the swan seems to echo the tone, letting out a low call that lingers like a sigh. The healer laughs gently, a sound of wonder, not of mockery. In one telling, the swan rises, circles once, and then settles back on the water, as if showing that even flight need not be fierce. In another telling, it rests its head beneath its wing, falling into sleep upon the lake, trusting the water to hold it safe. Both versions carry the same message. Even the greatest force in the world can choose rest. The villagers remain until the sky deepens into indigo and stars prick the horizon. They do not speak much, for the swan's presence feels like language enough. The traveler dozes lightly, dreaming of roads lit by silver. The healer sets her bundle of herbs aside, feeling for once that her work can wait until morning. The artisan hums a low tune that blends with the chirp of night insects. The elder simply smiles, knowing that tonight's story is already written into their memory. And so the first part of our tale closes with the swan gliding into shadow, the lake folding into night. The villagers rise slowly, carrying a quiet peace back to their homes. The artisan whispers that tomorrow he will carve a bowl shaped like wings. The healer promises herself a gentler hand. The traveler vows to walk with lighter steps. The elder thinks of how to tell this story again, softer each time. The swan's lullaby lingers, even as silence grows. Lake ripple, soft breeze. Good night for now, though our story continues. The night grows deeper, yet the story does not end. The villagers, though returned to their cottages, still feel the presence of the swan. Lamps glow faintly in windows, a reminder of hearths waiting with warmth. Inside one home, the healer lights a small clay lamp and sets her herbs aside. She sits at her table and recalls the bird's calm song. In her heart, she wonders if the gods send such visions to remind mortals of balance, that even in healing there must be pause. She thinks of her patients, the old man with weary lungs, the child restless with fever. Tomorrow, she decides, she will speak not only of medicine but of sleep, of letting the body mend through rest. The swan, she believes, has given her permission to value quiet as much as remedy. Meanwhile, the artisan lies on his mat, hands folded behind his head, eyes tracing the rafters. All day he had worried about the crack in the wood of his latest bowl, about whether his skill was fading. But now he remembers the way the swan's feathers shimmered. Perfect not because they were carved or polished, but because they were natural. He whispers to himself, "I will carve tomorrow with less fear. Each flaw will be part of the story." His breathing slows, and sleep comes to him like a gentle tide. The traveler, still restless, walks once more by the lake. He carries no pack, only a small lantern that flickers in the breeze. The path crunches softly under his feet. Above, the stars stretch wide. He pauses to watch their patterns. As a boy, he once heard that Zeus set constellations as markers, not only to remind sailors of direction, but to remind wanderers that no road is endless. Looking at Orion and the faint curve of Cygnus, the traveler recalls the swan again. Could it be that this very constellation, the great bird shining across the sky, is not only a mark of beauty but a memory of that gentle night when power turned to peace? He lifts his lantern and bows to the stars, as if to honor both heaven and earth. The elder, awake longer than the others, sits by her doorway with her staff across her knees. She has told countless tales of gods and heroes, stories of fire, of conquest, of trials and triumph. Yet tonight, she considers whether her stories have missed something. Perhaps the people need not always hear of battles. Perhaps they need stories where gods pause, where storms rest, where strength itself chooses silence. She smiles, deciding that tomorrow she will tell children not of thunderbolts, but of the swan that sang. In some traditions, Zeus disguised as a swan is tied to famous myths of passion and pursuit. Yet there exist fragments, rare verses scattered in old poetry, that soften the image. One hymn from a lakeside cult speaks of the feathered lord who guards our sleep, whose wings hush the winds. Another carving found near a forgotten temple shows not a god in fury, but a bird curled as if in slumber. Scholars argue over meanings, but perhaps the people who carved and sang those images wished for gentleness in their lives more than conquest. It is easy to believe in thunder when storms roll overhead, yet harder, and maybe braver, to believe that thunder can fall silent. The traveler returns from the lake, lantern nearly out, and rests by the hearth of the elder. She welcomes him with warm milk. They speak softly of journeys and of rest. He confesses that he has always feared stopping, worried that pause meant failure. The elder replies, "No, stopping is the soul's way of finding its breath. Even gods must rest, else why would they choose swan's feathers instead of storm clouds?" The words settle into him like warm cloth. He feels lighter, as though the road ahead can wait. Beyond their homes, the lake glimmers faintly under starlight. The swan is gone, or perhaps it has simply merged with the darkness. The reeds sway gently, whispering as if they too heard the lullaby. A soft wind moves across the water, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. To those who wake briefly in the night, the sound is comforting. They turn on their mats, sighing, and return to sleep. There is a curious question the elder keeps in her thoughts. Why a swan, and not another? Bird? In Greek lore, swans were tied to Apollo, god of music and prophecy. They were said to sing before death, though some believed they sang simply at twilight, when day turned to night. Perhaps Zeus, in choosing a swan, wished to borrow that gentleness, that music of transition. If so, then his disguise was not random, but chosen carefully to tell mortals that endings need not be harsh. Dusk leads to night, just as storms lead to calm. And so the myth weaves itself not around conquest, but around listening. The healer listens to silence as medicine. The artisan listens to imperfection as beauty. The traveler listens to stars as companions. The elder listens to memory as promise. Each finds comfort, and each teaches that the swan's lullaby is not merely a tale, but a way of being. Toward midnight, the village sleeps. Only the quiet rhythm of crickets remains, joined by the faint sound of water lapping at the shore. The gods, if they watch, do so silently. Perhaps Zeus himself, high on Olympus, has laid aside his scepter for a while, content to dream as a swan upon a lake. Perhaps he too understands that there is wisdom in gentleness, and that to hold power well is to know when to rest. And so this part of the story settles like a feather on water. The healer drifts into dreams where fields bloom quietly. The artisan's hands unclench, ready for tomorrow's work. The traveler sees in his sleep roads that curve softly into homecomings. The elder dreams of children's laughter as she retells the gentler myth. All find rest, for the swan's song lingers even when unheard. Night insects, soft wind. Good night for now, though the story flows onward. By the time dawn leans over the hills, the swan's song has already woven itself into every heart. The lake lies calm, touched with the faintest blush of morning. Mist rises, drifting like breath across the surface. Birds stir in the reeds, their wings shaking off dew. A fisherman, first to wake, walks to the water with his net. He pauses, for the memory of last night still lingers. He does not cast immediately, but sits quietly, watching the mist swirl. He recalls the swan's silence, the way it turned noise into music, and decides to wait until the water feels ready. Even in work, he finds patience, and patience, he realizes, is also a gift. Within the village, the healer wakes early and prepares her herbs. Yet she does not rush. She mixes slowly, breathing deeply, telling herself that every measure carries the stillness she learned. When a child's mother comes seeking help for restless sleep, the healer does not only offer a tincture, but also words. Rest is a medicine too. Tonight, leave a bowl of water by your window, and when the wind moves across it, imagine the swan, Still gliding there?" The mother nods, comforted not only by remedy but by imagery, by story turned into practice. The artisan steps into morning light, woodblock under his arm. He sits near his door and begins to carve, not forcing shape, but letting the lines emerge. His knife follows the grain. By noon he has formed a bowl, simple and curved like a feather cupped to hold water. He runs his hand along its rim and smiles. "Perfection," he murmurs, "is not flawless. Perfection is peace." He sets it aside, knowing it carries the memory of last night. Perhaps one day others will drink from it and feel the calm of a swan's song. The traveler lingers longer in the village than he planned. He tells himself he must move on, but his feet do not hurry. He sits with children in the square, pointing to constellations even in daylight's faint trace. He explains how swans fly in patterns that mirror the stars. Perhaps, he suggests, the swan on the lake was a reflection of Cygnus above. The children listen wide-eyed, learning that the heavens are not distant but kin to their world. In teaching them, the traveler learns too. A road need not always lead away. Sometimes it circles back to belonging. The elder, as promised, gathers the people by the well in the evening. Her staff rests against her knee, her eyes glint beneath the lantern glow. She begins not with thunder but with whisper. Once, they say, Zeus set aside his storms and became a swan. He did, not descend to command or to frighten, but to sing, and those who listened found peace. The crowd leans closer, waiting for more. She tells them of the artisan's flute echo, of the healer's gentle promise, of the traveler's lantern bow to the stars. She weaves each villager into the myth, reminding them that gods do not only live in high stories, but in the simple stillness of their lives. The children clap quietly, delighted that even a mighty god can choose to be soft. The parents exchange nods, grateful for a story that leaves them soothed. There is a gentle curiosity in the elder's tone. She asks aloud, "Did the swan leave us, or did it become the night sky itself?" Some say they saw it lift into stars. Others believe it sank into the lake's depth to guard them from below. The elder does not resolve the mystery. Instead, she says, both answers may be true, for what matters is not where it went, but what it left behind. She taps her staff once, as if to mark the end of the tale. The lanterns sway in the breeze, their flames steady and calm. Across Greece, stories of swans continued to drift in temples, in songs, in carvings. Some linked them with Apollo, some with Aphrodite, some with Zeus. But in each case, the bird stood for music, beauty, and transition. Perhaps this is why mortals chose the swan for lullabies, its image sliding easily into stories told to children before sleep. The myth of Zeus's swan may not be the loudest, but it carries a truth needed as much as any thunderbolt. Power is also the choice to be gentle. As night falls again, the villagers sleep with lighter hearts. The fisherman dreams of calm waters. The healer dreams of quiet gardens. The artisan dreams of hands unshaken by fear. The traveler dreams of roads that welcome him home. The elder dreams of voices that will retell this story long after she is gone. Each dream folds into the next, as if sewn together by a single feather drifting across the sky. And so our tale closes with assurance. The swan's lullaby is not forgotten, for it lingers in the ripples of water, in the hush of reeds, in the constellations above. Whoever listens may still hear it, faint but steady, a reminder that true strength is not in the strike of lightning, but in the stillness that follows. Tonight, as you lie in your own quiet room, imagine a swan gliding across calm water, its wings folded in peace, its song humming gently through the night air. Rest in the thought that even the greatest powers of heaven know the value of calm. Rest in the knowledge that you are part of that peace, as safe and as held as the villagers by their lake. The night is long, but it is kind. Its silence is not empty, but full of care. The swan drifts with you, guarding your dreams. Soft ripples, distant breeze. Thank you for joining this story. If it brought you calm, remember to subscribe for more. Gentle myths shared each night. And now, sleep well, and good night.